He's Mike Golic, co-host of Gojo and Golic on DraftKings Network, former NFL defensive lineman, joining us on the program. Good to see you, Mike. Let's go with the quarterback sliding situation with Trevor Lawrence. And should the NFL look at this in the offseason with any modifications?
Well, I mean, really, the issue has been the quarterbacks on the sideline. You have Pat Mahomes making that move like he's going to step out of bounds and going inbounds. Caleb Williams on Thanksgiving doing that and almost got sawed in half by Jack Campbell. And Caleb Williams said he had a problem with that hit. Well, you know what? I got a problem with you trying to fake going out of bounds and staying inbounds. You deserve to get smoked if you get smoked. So those are situations where, listen, defenders are playing at a disadvantage without question about hitting an offensive player, whether they get a penalty or even if there's no penalty, they get a letter during the week that they get fined $46,000 as well. As far as the sliding, Dan, that's such a tough bang play because the quarterback is going to try and get the first down. So they have to start their slide after the line because when they slide feet first, it goes where the butt is when they start to slide. So they have to wait an extra beat to slide while the defender gets kind of handcuffed on when they can hit him. So yes, I do think they're going to have to do something, but they're not, Dan, because they're not going to do anything that favors the defense. They're going to do everything and I'm not saying this as a bitter former defensive lineman. I'm saying it because that's been the trend. The rule changes have all gone to the offense to try and make and for the health of the players, which has normally been the quarterbacks and the wide receivers.
But I wondered, and we're workshopping this morning, can I have a quarterback who acts like he's a punt returner that he will signal he's giving himself up? And if he extends that, then it's going to be a penalty. Like just you're running with the football and you have your hand up to say I'm going down. And I'm open to criticism, but I'm trying to figure out.
I get what you're saying. I get you're trying to have a signal that says I'm going down, but the problem's going to be again when they're trying to get the first down. They want to reach the sticks and the defender wants to stop them from reaching the sticks, but they have all the protection if they're going to slide feet first. So even if they do it what's considered late and the defender is basically already airborne, you know what the league says? It's on the defender. The defender has to make the adjustment. Just like landing on the quarterback, the defender has to make the adjustment, which is ridiculous, but they're not going to change that. But you're along the right lines of finding a way to give up for the quarterback to give himself up, just like receivers do when they want to call a timeout. They just hit the ground and they're done, and they call timeout so the clock stops. I don't know if it'll be too quick to give like a fair catch and slide because, again, they're worried about getting the first down. But I think you're on the right path of we have to find an answer to this. Now the hit by, Shaair was what he led with his forearm and his head. I mean, that one we have to take out of the equation.
Yeah, that was intent. And that's why I had no problem with him being suspended. How would you describe Jameis Winston if somebody had never seen him play?
I mean, I think you get exactly what you saw in that game. You look at all the years where he started double-digit games, he had double-digit interceptions, including the classic year in Tampa when he had 33 touchdowns and 30 interceptions. But if he started more than 10 or 11 games, he always had in the teens of interceptions. So it's kind of hit, and he's been that way from Florida State. He's been a gunslinger. He just tries. He feels the ball will go through the defender and into his receiver's hands. He has that mentality, and at times it looks great, and at times it costs you, like it did in the game against Denver.
Well, he wants to be Brett Favre.
Yeah,
but he's not Brett Favre.
No.
But I do love the personality that he brings. Like he gives us a chance.
He gives a better pregame speech than Brett Favre, that's for sure. I mean, listen, teammates love him. I mean, they love him. And just think about if the Browns actually started him for the entire season. Now, he would probably have double-digit interceptions. But the offense, you saw the statistics up. They laid him out last night. They're just a better team with Winston at quarterback, but they're screwed. I mean, the next 2 years, $72.9 million each year is the cap hit for Deshaun Watson.
Watching that Buffalo game, worst snow game that you ever played in was where?
Probably my last year in '93 with the Dolphins. We played the Cowboys in Dallas before the new stadium, obviously, and there was a big snowstorm, and we played in like a foot of snow. That's when we were kicking the game-winning short field goal. It was blocked, and Leon Lett slid into it, and we got repossession of it and kicked the game-winning field goal. That was probably about a foot of snow. And quite honestly, Dan, I know I played 9 years in the NFL, and that's supposedly good, but I was not a great athlete. And when the weather was worse, everybody's athletic ability, and listen, I'm a self-denigrating guy, but I'm serious about that. All of a sudden, the old linemen weren't as strong as they could be because they couldn't use their leverage or plant their feet as much, and everybody wasn't as fast as they normally were. So I loved it when the weather was crappy.
You were Reggie White in the snow.
Yeah, exactly. I was the poor man's Reggie White. Yes,
you were Reggie Very White. He's Mike Golic, co-host of Gojo and Golic on DraftKings Network. Where do you stand with the planting the flag after a game, Mike?
Listen, I mean, I know that they asked Baker Mayfield about it. By the way, remember Baker Mayfield planted a flag in artificial turf, so it couldn't even stay up. I mean, all of a sudden, there are fights like crazy that are breaking out. What's the easiest thing to do, Dan, is to stop the plant flagging. Just outlaw it. Just say you can't do it anymore, because it's just these are 18 to 22-year-olds who are just ramped up, testosterone-filled guys, ramped up, knowing you just know you had 60 minutes to fight and win a football game, and you didn't, and now you're showing more effort in fighting a team from putting a flag in your logo. The easiest thing is to just outlaw it, but players will find something else to do. You know what they'll do? The just pick Michigan State. Michigan will just go to the center of the Ohio State logo and just start kicking it with their cleats and just turfing it that way, and a fight will still start. So you probably have to ban the flag planting, and then you have to come down heavy on players if there is a post-game fight. You have plenty of film and tape to see who's doing what, and you're going to have to discipline them. I mean, it's getting carried away.
Your Notre Dame Fighting Irish look pretty good. I don't, you have the Northern Illinois interruption, but they're a really good, balanced team. I don't know how good they are. Do you?
I think the biggest improvement, two biggest improvements during the year, was the offensive line, which was really young, but they've all grown together now. And Riley Leonard in the passing game has gotten a lot better. Their defense is great, and the running game is great because that O-line has matured. My fear, Dan, is they've blown out everybody since Northern Illinois. Now, USC was a little closer. They needed a couple pick sixes. But my fear is when they have to pass. Now, Riley Leonard is improving in passing, but they've been blowing teams out. But what if they're down 2 scores and need to pass to get back in the game? That part of the passing game hasn't really been tested yet, and the competition only gets stronger in the playoffs, so that may get tested. But they're playing as well as anybody in the country right now, and they're going to have a home game in what I hope will be a warm weather SEC team, and I hope there's 3 feet of snow.
How about Miami in South Bend?
So, yeah, listen, both my boys were on Notre Dame when they played in the Sun Bowl in El Paso, and they played the U, and it was like 30 degrees, and the Miami players, I mean, it was a blowout. They just did not want to play in the cold. So that's where Greg Sankey and the SEC is going to get mad when they see their teams traveling to Penn State, to Ohio State, to Notre Dame, and playing in the first round.
And Boise State.
And that's right. And Boise State as well. Yes.
Your NFL MVP right now is?
You know what? I mean, I think you got to look at Josh Allen and what he's doing with that offense. I mean, Cook's running well to help the offense. They got help with the receiver position, but they go how Josh Allen goes. And right now they're 1 loss by Kansas City away from having the number 1 seed, but they still got to get over the hump in the playoffs. But it's tough not to look at, obviously, the quarterback's Lamar Jackson, but I would take Josh Allen over him. And you have to look at Saquon Barkley. I'm one of those, not a big fan of the Heisman because it normally goes to a quarterback, but it won't this year. It'll go to Travis Hunter, rightfully so. So I kind of like when other positions get involved in these races.
It's weird to say this, maybe not to you, but I think the most valuable player on the Eagles is somebody that you wouldn't expect to be named the most valuable player on the Eagles.
Who is that?
Jalen Carter.
Let me tell you, when people have started bringing up, Dan, that he is kind of the reincarnation of Jerome Brown, my former teammate, and that is spot on. I mean, Jalen Carter plays on the other side of the line, just like Jerome did. Quickness, strength, leverage. He is a one-man wrecking crew. I would completely agree with you. We know that's not going to happen, but as far as being MVP, but MVP of the team, I mean, you could certainly see that probably be Saquon Barkley, but what an impact that middle interior D-line is having.
More of a mess, the Jets or the Giants?
I would say the Jets because they gave up assets to build the team, not only gave up assets, but brought in older veteran players for a run, kind of like what Tampa Bay did with Tom, and it worked out because they got a Super Bowl. But now you brought in players like a Tyron Smith, whose career is probably over. You brought in other older players, and you traded assets away for players, and it didn't work. You have to blow the entire thing up. With the Giants, at least they don't have the aging vets, and they didn't give up assets to bring in players. So I would say the Jets, but they're both in bad shape, but I would say the Jets in worse shape.
Good to talk to you. My best to the family. Thanks for joining us.
You got it, buddy.
That's Mike Golic, co-host of Go Joe and Golic on DraftKings Network, and, of course, former defensive lineman, played at Notre Dame.